Drinking Liberally is a non-partisan event. We actually have a Republican speaker tonight, which we're very excited for. We focus on the belief of liberalism being the protection of our liberties, whether it be from government overreach, such as denying women access to abortions, or denying transgender folks a right to their own surgeries. And we also believe in freedom from corporate overreach, denying the workers the right to organize, denying the workers the right to set the terms of their employment condition. So tonight we're going to be talking about democracy. Who here believes that everybody should have the right to vote? That's good. That's good, yeah. Who here believes that prisoners should have the right to vote? That's a good start. All right, I'm going to throw a little curveball. Who here believes that non-citizens should have the right to vote? If they're paying taxes, definitely. They are, yeah, they're citizens. So, in regards to paying, they definitely pay. So democracy is an interesting subject, no doubt. We many times don't have over 50% of our population voting in major elections. That means that in a tight race, about 25% of the people are actually the ones that are getting their voices heard. So democracy is something that is obviously worth protecting and more importantly worth expanding. Worth trying to get more voices out and their opinions heard. And that's what we need not only for our country, but for our workplaces as well. Because in this country we believe in democracy. We believe that everyone has the right to be a part of the decision-making body. And that's what keeps this country on the right path. So, thank you, Bennett. So for tonight, we have two speakers. We're going to start off with Bobbie Gross, our newly elected county clerk and reporter, one that I enjoy very much. She is not currently in house arrest, so she will be able to, I had to throw that in there, sorry. She'll be able to speak to us tonight about the importance of voting, what is going on in the county, how you, and she has a sign-up form for an open house that's occurring there, yes, how you can learn about elections so you can educate folks and correct some misconceptions that might be going on around elections. So, without further ado, Bobbie, if you don't mind coming up, as we usually do with Drinking Liberally. Oh, round of applause first. Yes, Bobbie, please. We'd like to give our speakers some time to educate us, and then there'll be a Q&A session. So without further ado, here you are, Bobbie.
Thank you, and thank you for the invite to come and talk with you tonight. I think it's important that we engage our community and let them know what's going on at the clerk's office and some of the things that we're working on. And we also, I printed out the life of the ballot, so if you have questions on what happens with your ballot once you put it in that drop box, this process will go through each step that we have of your mail ballot. So pick one flyer up, I have them there at the back of the table there. And so I always get a lot of questions on what happens with my ballot. So this will tell you exactly step by step what our team does to make sure that your vote counts. So I thought I would just kind of start off and kind of tell you, since I started office, what we've been working on and some of the changes that we've made so far. So the first thing that we did is we came in and we extended motor vehicle office hours. So it used to be 8:30 to 4:30. We open now at 8. So 7:45 you can come in and get your number, and then we can assist you starting at 8 o'clock. So we're pretty excited about that. We are gearing up for our busy season. Summer's always really crazy in motor vehicle. So I tell people, if you don't want to wait in line, don't come at the end of the month. Come in the middle of the month, the middle of the week, that's the best time. And also, if you do have to come at the end of the month, I encourage you to go to our website and sign up for an appointment. So that way you have a set time to come in and you're not waiting in line if you're not able to. So I'm excited about that. We still have our 3 offices. We are open, our main office, Monday through Friday. Clifton is also open Monday through Friday. And then our Fruita office is open Tuesday and Thursday. So we want to get those outer communities as well. Department of Revenue, so a little bit of update with them. We don't do driver's license, but we work a lot with the Department of Revenue, and they do have a new director, and she came out of Florida. And I think that she's really looking at ways to make it easier for people to do a lot of things online versus having to stand in line at the DMV, even for driver's license. I know I had to go get my daughter's driver's license. Her permit actually, she just turned 16, so we got her permit, and I didn't know that you had to make an appointment first before you went in. So I got turned away and said, go make your appointment and come back later. So good thing to know, but she really is trying to improve the DMV, both on motor vehicle side and driver's license side, so I'm pretty excited to see what comes out of the Department of Revenue here. They also did a mobile DMV for driver's license, and they're going to rural communities, so you can look for that. So if you're in Colburn, the back, Gateway, we can help you set that up if you guys are interested in the mobile DMV, and they'll do your driver's license and renew them right there in a van. So I'm excited that they're rolling that out as well. Clerk to the board, we are gearing up for a busy BOE season. I'm sure you all got your evaluations on your homes, and so we're expecting a lot of appeals, and so we're gearing up for that too. So we're pretty excited about that process coming up. So we're also working on the second half of our recording grant. So the last couple of years, they got a first half of the grant to kind of digitalize some of our older records so that they're available for the public. And I applied for the second half of the grant, so hopefully we'll get that up and going. And hopefully by the end of the year, we'll have all of our old historic documents online for people to research. And before I start with elections, because that's next, we pulled the registered voter numbers, so if you guys are interested, because I always like numbers and statistics, but we have currently 109,704 active voters in Mesa County. We have 15,298 Democrats, 40,606 Republicans, 51,522 unaffiliated, and 2,224 are registered as other parties. So our valley is growing for sure, and those numbers get updated daily. I see them fluctuate, and I kind of like to see the trend. So that was pretty interesting to see, but I just pulled those yesterday. Elections, we held our first open house, and it went really well. A lot of engagement. I was pretty surprised. We held our first open house, and typically they last about an hour. This one lasted 3. So I was pleasantly happy that people were really engaged, and they asked a lot of questions. And I always like that engagement and to answer questions that people have about our election. So we're pretty excited about that. I do have a sign-up sheet in the back, like Alan said. We are holding an open house August 5th, which is a Saturday from 10 to noon, and we'll have our new to us facility, so we did a remodel. And so we're getting that set up and ready, and so we'll do an open house August 5th so people can see our new processes that we're putting into place. And then in October, in November, we'll do a couple more open houses during the election so people could actually see the process of your ballot being counted. So we're excited about that. So if you guys are interested, give me your email. We'll make sure that we get that information out to you so you guys can come join us. Sorry, I turned the page. The other thing that we did, which was really cool, is the beginning of May, we also hosted the Western Regional Training for Elections and Motor Vehicle Training. We had about 70 attendees from around the western side of the state, so it was a great turnout. The Secretary of State came down, they did some training, the Department of Revenue came down as well, and we had a speaker from FBI down there, which was pretty interesting as well. So it was great to be able to host that for the Western Regional Training. Central High School, if you guys haven't heard, we won the Eliza Pickrell Route Award. She was the first woman to register to vote in Colorado in 1893. She was also the first lady. Her husband, John Route, was elected as Colorado's first governor in 1876. The award is issued to schools that have at least 85% or more seniors registered to vote. And Central High School won it twice. So this is the second year that they've won that, and they won with 93% of their seniors registered. So we were excited to be a part of that and be able to join the Secretary of State's office to give them that award. A couple of things that we're working on just for some transparency is we're working on putting our cameras online for the ballot boxes. So it's more transparent. If somebody wants to look at them, they'll be online. And also, we can also tell if the cameras go down. So we got new camera systems. So they will send an alert to my phone, even if it's at 2 o'clock in the morning, I will get alerted to make sure that those cameras are on our ballot boxes all the time. So we're pretty excited about the update on those cameras as well. Our facilities department worked really hard to get that up and going for us. We're also working on finding a cost-effective solution to redact personal identifying information on ballots so that if somebody wants the ballot images, that we can hand them over without any cost. I think it's good for transparency. I just want to be able to show that we're not hiding anything in elections. It does take a little bit of work on our end, but I think that we can build that into our process, so it's a lot easier for us. Last but least, I participated in legislation, so that was an interesting event. I've never really had to testify on legislation or work on legislation, so that was pretty interesting, but I did participate and testified on Senate Bill 23-276, which was an elections cleanup bill. And they did take a lot of that bill out just to make sure that it passed. So we'll get more cleanup next year, is what they said. But one of the things that really helped us is that we have funding for elections. So currently we receive about 40 to 80 cents reimbursement per voter. And it costs us over $4 to send a ballot out. So with this, the reimbursement hasn't changed since 2012. And I can tell you that this year, my cost for ballot printing and mailing has significantly increased because there's apparently a paper shortage. So everybody's aware of that, and our prices increased significantly. But Senate Bill 23-276. 276. So this bill that passed, it will give us a percentage of reimbursement instead of a set number. So we'll get 45, our county will particularly get 45% reimbursement on our elections. So that's going to help tremendously on the cost of running our elections. So we're pretty excited. It was, all the county clerks, 64 county clerks supported that bill, and we all testified on that bill to try and get it passed. So it was a good effort. So another bill that came, but it died on the floor, and I think it's worth a conversation because I do believe they're going to put it on the ballot, and so I think it's good for us to start the conversation. But there was a bill that, Senate Bill 23-301, it was for presidential primaries to be ranked choice voting. I can tell you that I didn't support this bill, and I'll tell you a reason why is I didn't support this bill is because in this bill, they said that they'll roll out in 2024 for a presidential primary, and it wouldn't be for everybody. It would only be for overseas and military voters. And I wasn't for that because I feel like if we're going to do it for one, we have to do it for all. We should be voting the same way. So I said we can't be treating different voters different ways. Not only that, as an administration, part of it, we're not set up for it. And so to put it on 2024 is not fair to any clerk in Colorado because it wouldn't set us up for success. So they are talking about, that bill also said that it would just be 2024 for UVA-CAVA voters, which is our overseas, and then it will be implemented in 2028. But that bill did get, it got cut before it even really got off the ground. So. But I can tell you that if anybody wants to know, I didn't support it because of that. I think we have to treat all of our voters the same. So, but they did talk about that there's probably going to be a ballot initiative for ranked choice voting. So it's a conversation to start. I obviously have my own beliefs, and I'm sure everybody else does too. And so I think it's worth a conversation to see how we go forward if that happens. So last but not least, I think we have a pretty amazing team, and so I'm really happy that I just really appreciate my staff and everything they do with the community. I couldn't do it alone. So I couldn't do it alone without them. So I'm happy that I have the staff. And now I'll open it up for questions.
Yes? Okay, better. Okay. We'll just set this down. We have one rule here at Drinking Liberally. The question cannot be longer than the answer. So, do we have any questions for our county clerk? All right, we'll start with David. Okay. He knows the rule, so he's going to do a great job. I'll bring you the mic here so everyone can hear.
When Sheila was clerk, the county did the election for the municipality. When Sheila was clerk, the county clerk did the election for the municipalities. Her successor, wonderful person, stopped doing that. Are you going to start again?
So he asked if we were going to run the city of Grand Junction election, so we didn't run it this year because the previous clerk decided not to run it for the city, and so I didn't have time to even change anything by the time I came in January. But I can tell you that I want to support the city. I would like them to move to November. It makes sense if they move it to November for cost-wise, and for our staff, it gives our staff a little break. But if they choose not to do that, it does have to be a change in their charter. So I don't know if the city is willing to put that to a vote, because it would have to go on a ballot to change their charter to move their elections to November. But if they don't want to move it to November, I still think it's important that election supports them. And I always tell people that regardless of what election it still reflects on our office. Even if the city is running it, we're the elections office, and that's what our name is. And so I feel it's important that we are consistent with our elections, and so I would definitely like to have that conversation with the city.
So, but you're not going to go back to the Sheila Reiner regime?
She did, yes.
So,
One question here.
so I was unaware that the city ran their own elections. What office runs that, and how does that work?
So the city of Grand Junction actually has a city clerk, and she runs those elections. So they come to us for the data, so we give them, whoever's eligible to vote in the city election. So our office provides the data for them, but they're in charge of, making their own ballots, doing their own ballot layout, counting their own ballots, and we did offer our ballot boxes to them because they only had one city ballot box, so we did offer our ballot boxes for them to utilize during that election in this April.
Just to follow up, what about Fruita and Palisade? Well, in regard to you running their elections.
So we are looking at talking to the different municipalities. I can tell you though, it's next year we have 3 elections. We actually will start this year, and we won't stop all next year. And so to run Fruita's, I believe, is next year. We just don't have the bandwidth because we have the presidential primary in March, the primary in June, and the presidential in November. So we're kind of at our max bandwidth with that. But I think that there's still opportunities to have them, contract with us and maybe move their elections if they can, to coordinate with us. I know that we're meeting with DeBeck and those other small municipalities, and even Palisade. We're setting up meetings to have those conversations so that we can help them for sure.
Okay, we'll go Bennett, and then we can go one more after that.
Where is Tina Peters?
no idea.
All right, our last question here.
Hi, could you go into a little more detail as far as what it would take on your end if ranked choice voting became reality here?
Oh, and could you explain ranked choice voting?
So I'll try to explain ranked choice voting. So basically, you have a certain amount of people on the ballot, and you rank them your first choice, second choice, third choice, and fourth or fifth, or however long the ballot is on those candidates. And then if they get 50% or more, then they would win that election. But if they get under 50%, then it's the top two candidates that move forward to a runoff election. So it would create another election for us. And also, our equipment would all have to be updated to be able to tabulate that ranked choice voting, and we're not set up for that yet.
Okay, well, that was our last question. Any closing statement?
I just want to thank you guys for allowing me to come and talk to you, and it's a big group, so thank you for having me tonight.
And on the subject of democracy and then the subject of education, again, that's really exciting that Central High School was at 93% of their seniors are registered to vote. That's amazing. That's the next generation of voters that we really need to keep this country going. With that, I'm going to invite Darren Cook up, a former educator, former union president, knows a lot about voting, knows a lot about education. He's got that social studies background, so working with those kids on letting them know what's important in life and making sure they're on the right track. And you might have heard some things that are going on right now in our school board. So, Mr. Cook, without further ado, take it away.
All right, thank you guys. I get to speak on my favorite subject, which is public ed, and that's quite an honor. Before that, I'd like to, if we can, raise a glass to Nick Allen, Charlie Allen, Bobbie Gross, for all being part of making this happen tonight. Cheers. Mine's over here. I find that 1 to 2 beers is the perfect amount to listen to me. So if you guys are somewhere between 1 and 2, it's going to be a better experience for you. There'll be regular opportunities throughout my 15-minute speech to do a cheer to something. And help you along. But I want to talk about civic virtue first, and give you a little bit of background on myself, just so that you kind of understand my biases as we're talking about public ed. One, I'm a product of public education. How many people in here are a product of public education? All right. So we should be pretty much on the same page. And I'm going to go back and talk just a little bit. It might confuse you for a moment, but I promise that it's going to make sense. My dad was a man of great civic virtue. And civic virtue is going to be something we talk a lot about tonight. I'm going to talk a lot about because I feel like that's an element that we really need to include in our public education. So civic virtue. What's civic virtue? It's the idea that the common experience is as important or more important than self-interest. The common, there we go? Okay. The common experience should be as important or more important than your self-interest. And that was something that my dad understood implicitly when he decided, I think it's going to go out, but when he decided to go to war for the Vietnam War. And like most people that did that, he came back with some damage, as people who went to the Vietnam War, it was a common experience. So he had the anger, the depression, the anxiety, the PTSD, all those things. And I say that only to mention for the fact that we had a real problem in my family staying in one place for very long. And I relied on public education for me to be able to to get ahead in life. It was an equalizing experience for me. So I went to Nisley, Lincoln Park, Clifton, Taylor, Mount Garfield, Bookcliff, Central High School, and Grand Junction High School just in town. we moved 30 times before I was 18. And as a result of that, I relied heavily on my teachers. My teachers were the place that I went to that were the rock solid people. I relied on people like Mrs. James, who would just discreetly put a bag of clothes under my desk in 8th grade. I relied on people like Mr. Kiefer, who said, Darren, you're a smart guy, you need to go to college. I hadn't even considered it up until that point. And so I did. I went to CU and got an accounting degree, decided that accounting wasn't really for me, and I felt like I wanted to give back more. And of course, what was in my heart was public ed. So I went back and got a degree in teaching. I then went on to get my master's at a public education or a public university as well. So public education is huge for me. You need to understand my bias. That I think that it's responsible for the fact that, you know, while drinking beer, you find me an interesting person maybe to listen to for 15 minutes. So without that, I guarantee you that that wouldn't have happened. So tonight, I've got about 15 minutes, and I'm going to talk about basically 3 things. What is it to live in a democracy? What are the origins of public education? And what are some of the challenges of public education going forward? Does that sound good? I think we should drink to that. So we're going to talk about that. So we're going to start with the what is it to live in a democracy? You know that the Constitution only mentions republic and republican one time, and in that it says in Article 4 that states are guaranteed a republican form of government. That's the only time our Constitution mentions what our government is. And yet, our Supreme Court has said that they will not take the subject in front of them to say what a Republican form of government is. They will not hear it, and that has been something that's gone down through the court cases again and again and again. So when we say that we have a Republican form of government, or we are part of a democracy, what does that mean? Now, how many people had a middle school class or elementary class where they talked about ancient Greece, ancient Rome, and talked about democracy, or talked about the Roman Republic, right? So we'll talk about that real quickly. Ancient Greece, right? Athens, the foundation of democracy. They did something very interesting, and they said that they're going to have meetings in the agora in the evenings, and they're going to talk about public matters. They're going to discuss them, they're going to debate them, and then they're finally going to have a vote on them, right? They get the clay jars, they put in their colored pebble, and they're going to discuss. You know, they're going to actually have a direct democracy. They're going to have a vote on what it is that was in front of the public. People went out in the evenings, they took an interest in public exercises, they were well educated, and they made a decision. And that was our first democracy. But if somebody had to have an elected, not an elected, but a government position, they didn't elect them. They did it by lottery, by lot, because they didn't trust that if they had an election, that their own self-interest would eventually become the dominant decision-making tool. Does that make sense? Okay, is that better? Okay, I'm sorry. So I'll repeat. We'll start from the beginning. So the interesting thing about that is that when they're in the agora and they're talking about making a decision, that they believed that they needed to do it by lottery. They didn't trust in